you want to see covered, but that will be for another time. Two candidates are not present tonight. Tim Murray, who called the library, requested to send over a statement. He does have commitments with his daughters. Also, Nicholas L. We did not hear from him, so I'm not sure the circumstance there. So at this point, one thing I would ask, as your candidates answer, please hold your applause until the end of the evening. So with that, Mark, it's all yours.
Thank you, Margaret. Good evening and welcome to tonight's Blair Community Schools School Board Candidate Forum. I'm Mark Rhodes with Enterprise Media Group. I'll be your moderator for tonight. First, I think we need to thank Margaret Hanson, Library Director Brooke Zarko, Connie Hagedorn, and Wendy Lukert, who have worked hard to put tonight's event together. Maybe let's give a round. Like you, that we do have a great school system. And thank you to all who are attending tonight. It's important to be informed before you vote, and tonight's event will definitely make you a more informed voter. Tonight's event is not meant to be a debate, but more a get to know your candidate night. All candidates will be asked the same questions and have 90 seconds to respond. There will be a warning flag with 15 seconds response time remaining. If any candidate directs a comment to one of their opponents, another candidate, that candidate will then have 60 seconds to respond. We'll rotate to different candidates for the first to answer with each question. We're going to open tonight's event asking each candidate to introduce themselves, tell a little bit about themselves, and talk about what motivated them to run for school board. Do we have a volunteer to go first, and then we'll just rotate through? Any volunteers to be first up? Steve. Okay, Steve.
All right. I'm Steve Callahan. I came to Blair in 1973, shortly after getting out of basic training and finishing up at Iowa Western and transferring to Dana. Worked in the local community, went to school here. Started driving school bus in 1975, and then student taught in Blair in 76, and in 79 or 78, 79, can't remember, started teaching full-time here. I've been involved with the Blair school systems in a lot of different ways. Taught for over about 40 years, still teaching on a limited basis with substituting, and coached volleyball, cross country the longest, track, wrestling, and also been involved with many of the other clubs, junior class sponsor, and so forth over the years. I love being on the school board. It's a challenge. It's a lot of work. On an average, it ranges from just being a few hours a week to being 8 or 10 hours a week, and then during busy seasons like August, when you're looking at budget and other things, it goes for quite a few more. It is a commitment, and I'm willing to do that. And like I said, I love doing it. My son graduated from here. I think it's a great school district, and I want to continue making it a great place.
Thanks, Steve. Berta, you go next.
My name's Berta Bilbay. I grew up here, graduated from here, raised my children here, and now my grandchildren have entered into the school, at least one of my grandchildren so far, entered the school district. I've been heavily involved with multiple things in the community, but I'm also a past 12-year member of the school board. My last term ended 8 years ago. The reason why I'm running again is because people were upset that I got off of it to begin with, but have really just been asking me, please get back on the board. And I was always the person that said, if you don't have kids in the district, you have no business being on the board. That was always my statement, and I still believe that. But now I have grandkids in the district, so I think I can let that slide now. This whole community is important to me. The school needs to work with everybody in the community. It's just not, the school can't just be its own little island. I'm a very conservative person that you might remember from my previous years on the board. I'm a big believer in all kids, not just the high ability learners or the special ed, our core group of kids are, the majority of our kids are the middle school kids. So, with that being said, I mean, you should all recognize me from the last time around.
Thank you, Brenda. Tim, you wanna go next?
Yeah, I'm Tim Welch, born and raised here. I graduated class in '95. I'm a chaplain for the Blair Fire Department and for the Blair Hospital. I am a licensed private investigator through the state of Nebraska. I'm a published author of a children's book. It came out 3 years ago. A copy of it sits in the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. I actually just found out recently that my next book will be published, and it will be out in October. The first book I did was an anti-bullying children's book to kind of bring awareness to that topic in general. I am on the library board here. I am certified with the Union Pacific Safety Committee. After my accident in '92, they seen how well I handled everything, and they asked me to be the face for their safety committee. So we travel to schools, organizations, and we bring awareness for train safety for the kids. When they talk to the kids, they say, you know, go through one ear and out the other, but when they see somebody that's actually been affected by it, they listen a little bit more. The reason I'm running is because I want to be able to give back to the school that stuck up for me when I had my accident.
Thanks, Tim. Courtney, you wanna go up next?
You bet. I'm Courtney Tabor. I live here in Blair also, obviously. My husband and I moved here about 18 years ago when we got married. Basically, I'm a mom. I have 6 children. 5 of them are currently in the school district, first grade through high school. And next year I'll have kindergartner through high school, so all 6 will be in the school district. I'm running because about a year ago I started going to the school board meetings with no intention of running, but simply just to know what was going on, know how the process worked, understand it more a little bit. And it just became really interesting. And then, you know, with everything going on, whether it's COVID or things in our country, or just simply my children's education, it's a big deal. Their character and their education is a really big deal to me. And so that's why I'm running, is to be as involved as possible in my children's education, and to make sure that when they leave, when they graduate high school, they have a solid character to get them into their career paths.
Okay, thanks, Courtney. Okay, you be up next.
Hi, my name is Nate Larson. I'm a longtime Blair resident. Went to Dana and graduated in 1996, and I've been here ever since. I'm also the father of 4 Blair Bears. My oldest is Dexter, who graduated last year. Then I have an 11th grader named Dane. I have a 7th grader named London and a 5th grader named Landry. So, been active with them in the community from the time Dex was a little guy till now. In a lot of different things, but primarily actually youth sports. You know, have been very active in that and still am currently. I'm running because I love the Blair Bears. You know, I love everything about Blair, the school, the community, and I just want to continue to see, you know, the same kind of education that my kids got and the opportunities that they've had, and hopefully expand upon that. One way that I'm going to do that, you know, is through common sense decision making. You know, I think the most important things when running, you know, and in making decisions are going to be, number one, you know, what's in the best interest of the kids, and then number 2, you know, how can we support the teachers and the faculty and staff, you know, in order to make sure that they get the best experience that they can have.
Thank you. Brittany?
Hi, I'm Brittany Gunderson. I have been a resident of Blair for the past 20 years. I married into the Blair family. My husband, Brett, graduated from Blair High School in Indiana. And we have 2 boys. Wesley graduated last year, and Wyatt is a 6th grader. I I've been a nurse for Children's Hospital, executive nurse for the last 22 years. I've been, so children's health and kids in general are something that I advocate for and passion. For the last 8 years, I've been an operations manager through our urgent care clinics and managed budgets, managed people. And when in 2018, when I ran for the board, it was following our failed bond measure that kind of got me interested in the money part of what's going on in our schools. And eventually learning there was school shootings and whatnot, and I just was very interested to find out what was going on inside the school. So I got on the board, and it's been a wonderful experience. I've gained a lot of knowledge. I think our school board, our administrators, our superintendent are doing amazing things, and I'm running to continue that tradition to make sure that what we do is best for kids and to continue to support our teachers with the resources they need, and also to help work with parents. And I understand that there's a lot of transparency concerns.
Thank you, Brittany. Amy?
Hi, my name is Amy Cochran. I have been working in education for over 20 years, both as a classroom teacher and as an academic data analyst. That gives me a very unique view on education because I've seen it both as a support staff and as a teacher. I have seen parents' rights trampled on. Therefore, that's one reason why I'm running, is because I don't want our rights to be trampled on like it has been in some of the other counties in Nebraska. I don't want child grooming coming to our schools. I don't want any discrimination in our schools. I want our schools to be free of political agendas. Our children need to be learning math, reading, writing, and social studies. They need to learn the facts. They need to form their own opinions with their parents. Our schools are not co-parents with our schools are not co-parents with our parents. Our schools are there to educate our children. I want to let you know that I have flyers back in the back of the room. You are free to take a flyer. I'm on Facebook. I have lots of things posted. I'd like you to take a look and decide for yourself if I'm the candidate for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I will read Tim Murray's statement now. I've been a part of the Blair community for the past 18 years. I'm a former teacher with my bachelor's degree in secondary education and a master's degree in curriculum. I come from a family of educators, and my wife taught at Blair High School for 15 years. I currently work for Woodhouse as a finance manager. I'm running for Blair School Board because I want to make sure that the students and staff have everything they need to ensure success. It's been a difficult time these past couple of years for both students and teachers. I believe we need to make sure that all the resources needed for a growing district are provided. With experience in both education and finance, I believe I can help the school board and community move forward. Thank you for your consideration. Does everybody have their microphone on? Am I the only one?
Yeah. Can everybody hear what the candidates are saying? I'm having trouble back here, so turn your microphones on,
If
please.
they're not on, the little switch right on top should be green. Yeah.
I don't think so.
Now we're gonna go. All right, our first question, and we'll let her lead off on this, and then we'll go down to
Do I
Tim.
really need to use this I talk about anyway?
Yeah, maybe you don't, that's fine. Our first question for the night is, if elected, what would be your top priority during your term on the board and why?
The top priority would get reacclimated as far as the budget goes. I also have major concerns with political views as far as what our children should be getting taught, as far as I 100% agree. Let me back up. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and science is what we should be teaching. That is our job as a public school district. I also want to get familiar again with our budget. I do honestly have concerns that we had passed that. It failed the larger bond, went ahead and passed the smaller bond, but if you're paying attention, all the things that were in the initial bond package are getting done just a little bit at a time. So that does concern me a little bit, but again, I'm not involved with the money at, right now. I mean, I'm very good about reading the minutes of the school board, but that doesn't really give you a whole picture. So that would probably be my biggest concern.
Okay, thank you. Tim, we'll go to you next.
For me, I feel that the teachers and the students need a voice, especially when it comes to like the special education department. Talking to some of the teachers and some of the parents of the students, I feel that they need to be integrated into these classes. I feel that they're not necessarily being treated equally. And I think that's something that needs to be a focal point, because I feel a lot of times some of that stuff kind of gets swept under the rug. And I think it's important. When I was one of those kids that got swept under the rug after my accident, and there were a handful of teachers that did what they needed to do for me to help me be able to get to where I got. I was told that I would not graduate with my class, but the school pulled together because my accident happened in my second semester of my freshman year. After my accident, they said, you will not graduate. I missed my whole second semester, but the school pulled together and they helped me. And I want to be able to be that for the next generation that needs the help. And then again, as well as the academics and the budgeting and stuff like that.
Courtney?
Yeah, my top priority is hands down parent choice. And I know that's kind of a broad statement, but for me, what falls into that is anything to do with these health standards that our state board is considering pushing. I would be a vote against that when the local school boards get to choose if it passes at the state level. I believe that those are things that should be talked about at home, that parents can choose whether their children know about these things or not. Along with any sort of division, our history is our history, and it should absolutely hands down be taught as our history. Anything outside of the facts is again a parent's choice. Any sort of the health directives that were in our past couple of years, or that may again come, again, parent's choice. It is the parent's choice how we raise our children. I believe that these are our children that we're sending to our schools also. And I believe that parents' voices have been hushed a little bit those last couple of years. So I would definitely be a voice for the parents.
All right, thank you, Courtney. Nate?
My primary concern would be the student experience. One thing that I realized very quickly with COVID was that our kids only get one opportunity to go through high school. And if they miss out on certain things, they can't get that back. So again, one of the biggest things to me is to make sure that the decisions are made for the students, first and foremost, and give the support and the tools that the teachers need in order to help them to do that. I think, by far and away, that's the most important thing. I think one of the things that I have to do, or that any of the school board members would have to do, in order to accomplish that, is to know what the issues are, which means that they have to not only have their own opinion, their own agenda, but to have the agenda in mind that they have to talk to the students and find out what's important. They have to talk to the teachers and find out what's missing. And then most importantly, they have to talk to the parents and keep the parents involved.
Brittany?
One of my top priorities would be to work with teachers, students, and staff to give them the resources within our budget to continue to operate our budget fiscally sound. And for the last 3 years, we've operated a well-performing budget, and we did that after a cost reduction plan where we were able to focus money into our depreciation funds, into our building funds, and into our cash reserves, so that we had money to update curriculums, had money to update facilities in our buildings, and update a transportation fleet that's aging. So continuing to understand the issues that our teachers and administration are facing with with all areas of our education. And working in collaboration with other, with Metro to bring on dual enrollment classes, working with industries in the community and being a community partner in order to bring programs for trades. We've been an expansion of the high school and brought on welding and so many opportunities that have been a huge success for our students to have new opportunities beyond post-secondary education. That's one of the top priorities and excited about them.
Okay. Amy?
One of the top priorities that I would love to work on is the communication piece. I know that I have sent emails to the board and have gotten no response. I feel like possibly the board's listening to me, but without a response, it's hard to know whether they're listening or not. I've had other people let me know that they have not gotten a response also. Responding to emails is like a top priority of any organization. Also, when we send out surveys, we need to expect responses, and we also need to make sure that we are looking at those responses and giving weight to those responses. We have sent out surveys at bad times, Saturday night. We have sent out surveys and have pretty much ignored the responses that most of the public gave and went with what the school board had decided. So communication's a big piece. School board minutes go out a lot of times a week before the next meeting. So unless you're able to come to the school board meetings, which I've been coming pretty regular for the last year, you don't know what happened until a week before the next meeting. Communication. People need to know what's going on.
Thank you. Steve?
I guess one of my biggest priorities is to try to ensure that, like any family, we try to live inside our means. That's a very difficult task. We just went through a very, very difficult time with the budget reduction and had to make some painful cuts. We are now back on a very sound footing, and we are able to increase our offerings to students. Our facilities are improving, and all those things because of wise budget management. That, of course, is a big goal. Another goal is to try to see if in the future we can also reduce taxes with living inside that budget, and that's not always easy to do. One of the things that has been the most complicated is our state system of funding schools. We now budget and just kind of figure that we're not going to get any, all right? And so that's been a big thing, is trying to live inside our budget. I also feel that one of my top priorities, of course, is to expand our offerings. We have done that in the vocational area, as well as we're expanding in the dual enrollment area as well. Giving teachers what they need and listening to teachers, and that to see that we can continue to provide the things that they need is a priority as well. I'll stop there because I'm getting closer.
All right. Tim, you get to start this next one. And it is, if elected and you were on the board and the budget for the school had to be cut, where would you look first to cut funding and why?
Oh, that's a tough one. You would have to look at what's most important, right? And it's all equal all across the board, but you have to figure out where the cuts need to be made. Most importantly, you know, like right now, I know because at the last council meeting, one of the issues that they're having is, staffing, and there's the issues of, trying to find the staff to come in and yet trying to find the budget to be able to help certain staff members out. So I think staffing is probably the first and foremost, in my opinion, that would need to be focused on, because without a proper staff, it takes away from our children. So I think staffing would be first and foremost of what would be most important.
Okay. Courtney, next.
Yeah, I agree. That's a really tough question. What would be first to be cut? It was Yeah, the first we cut, gosh, to be really honest and say I'm not sure. Like, that would be something like to have to look across the board and see like, where is all that, where is there any excess to be cut? Could it, could there be, where we kind of keep a straight line where not anything has to go, if we take a little bit from everybody? I think that when I do my budget at home, that's kind of how it works, is we go back in one area, but not with the intention of staying that way, hopefully, so that would be a question that I would definitely want to reach out to our administration and our staff and ask also when it came to that.
Okay, it is a tough question. Nate?
Yeah, I think the better question is what we don't cut. And I think what we don't cut are the things that are gonna be in the best interest of the kids. So a lot of that is probably going to be, we don't cut anything that has to do with their education. If it's something with facilities, or if it's something else, maybe that's an option. Like Courtney said, I don't feel like at this point I have enough information, to be able to say what could be cut that wouldn't affect the kids as much. But that would be the ultimate goal, would be to find things that were cuttable, that would give less effect to the kids and allow them to continue to do the extracurricular activities that they are currently doing, and also have the same or better education.
Okay, thank you. Brittany?
Well, having gone through this the last 4 years, when you look at a budget, the largest contributing factor to that budget is salaries. And unfortunately, we found through that process of becoming most efficient, you have to look at the jobs that people do. Everybody needs that support, and I think that's what we're working on right now, is building that support back. But when you look at how many administrators you have doing the job, how many sections of classrooms, how many students are in those classrooms, and focusing on being most efficient. Again, I like the idea of we try to take a little bit from everything, and I think that's what we've learned in the past, is that things have been pushed down. Carpet wasn't replaced. There are HVAC systems that were aging, and there were transportation buses that were breaking down. There's curriculum or school books that hadn't been purchased in a long time. So I think a lot of those things were, when you were looking at the budget, you were to make cuts. Everything was affected, but you have to just look at everything and make sure you're operating most efficiently in these areas.
Okay, Amy?
Being a data analyst, I look at the data and see what is being used and what is not being used. Just like in the last board meeting, they talked about I believe it's called the Otis system, that was not being used effectively, and we're paying for it. So they're getting rid of the Otis system. So I'm sure that there's other things of that nature that we have purchased that we're not using effectively. So either we need to use them effectively, or we need to cut them. And I agree with replacement of the things that could go another year or two, like carpet, like Brittany said. But like, it's all in the numbers. You gotta look at the numbers. You gotta stay on the numbers to figure out what needs to be cut.
Okay, thanks. Steve?
Yeah, it took me a good 2 years before I even started to feel comfortable with dealing with budget issues. It's even more complex than your own family budgets, because it affects not only the kids, but it affects the community as well. Every person that you have to lay off, that's also a community member that you're laying off, and tax dollars that aren't coming in, and so forth. 85% of our budget is staff, pretty much so it's very high, and it is a major part. And making those decisions is really, really difficult. You hear lots and lots of voices, don't cut this, don't cut that, don't cut this, don't cut that. And it becomes very, very difficult to see where can you make those cuts. The last one, I got on it just at the start of it, and it was, as I said, very painful. For being in the district for 40-some years and driving school bus, working with the grounds people quite heavily from cross-country courses, things like that, and on athletic fields. It was really, really tough to look and see, where can we make a cut? Where can we do it without affecting the quality of stuff for kids, and also try to keep our staff, to provide for those things for the kids. It is difficult, and a lot of times you have to be very creative. One of the ways was we looked to the community to help us out. Our computers were bought by 2 local banks, and other contributors.
Thanks, Steve. Carter, you can wrap this one up.
I hate to say this again, but I've been through this and it is no fun. With the 12 years that I was on it, riffing staff is the worst thing you can do, especially when you grew up in this community. These are folks that were teachers of yours, and now they work for you as a board member. But in the past, what had worked well for me and other board members at the time was we sat down and had heart-to-heart talks with our superintendent, wanted to know exactly what his thoughts were, then we brought in administration, and then we made the tough decisions after that, whether it was to RIF teachers. There's also, again, not putting carpet at Arbor School was one of the items. The other things too is, you know, the amount of choices that we give these kids to take for classes. Sometimes it can be too much. I'm not a believer in paying a teacher to teach 10 kids in a class as a junior in high school when we could be getting more bang for our buck if it was a full classroom. So, again, not being on the board presently, I couldn't tell you exactly where we could cut it, but I know you have to start with your superintendent, your administrators, and the current school board to see where everything's at.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll let Courtney, you get to kick this one off. And the question is, what do you see as the major issues facing the Blair School District and the community of Blair?
Well, I go back to my priority. From what I hear this last year, last 2 years, has it been 3 years? Gosh. The major issues are our parents' voices. We really felt silenced. We really felt like that we did not have a choice in our children. You know, those set hours, we didn't get to choose anything. We weren't allowed in our kids' schools, and that was a really difficult time as a parent. And so, yeah, I go back to that as what I see as one of the biggest issues is the parent choice, the communication, to make sure that all voices are heard, that all voices matter, that when emails are sent, I feel like I was really fortunate. The majority of the time I did get some emails back from people, which I really did appreciate. But that's a common complaint, and I'm sure they were bombarded also during that time. So back to, yeah, that's what I see as one of our biggest issues right now from my stance as a mom.
Okay, thank you. Nate?
I think probably one of the biggest issues that we have today in Blair is just with transparency and talking to the right people about the decisions that we're making that are going to affect those people. So those people being the students, you know, letting them have a voice. Those people being the teachers, you know, the staff at the schools. You know, finding out what are those things that we need to fix, you know, that might be broken today. What are the things that are working really well? And then utilize what we find out from them. As Courtney was saying too, I think it's also really important to keep the parents, you know, educated on that too, and make sure that you're finding out from them what they want to have happen. Because ultimately, you know, as has been alluded to multiple times here, I think, you know, we want the parents to bring our kids up. We want the teachers and the staff to give them the experience and the education necessary to be successful in life.
Okay. Right. Brittany?
I was stole my word. I was going to say transparency. And I think communication, I think our superintendent does a really good job of sending out those updates. The updates go to all parents and the board members and what's going on with in the schools in the moment. I think we could definitely do a better job of getting those celebrations out to the community, letting the community know what's going on with their schools. We have a lot of people that just because your kids graduated are still very interested in what's going on in the schools, and we have a lot of parents who have kids that are toppers and coming up and kind of wondering, is Blair the right place to bring my student, or should we drive to another district? So we definitely want to make sure we attract students, get students to stay in Blair, and give them things that will help them grow and definitely stay in Blair for their life.
Okay, Amy?
You know, I moved to Blair in 2015, and I moved to Blair because of the school system. I love Blair, and I wouldn't go anywhere else. I hate it whenever I hear people talk poorly about the school system, and I hear people talk poorly about what's going on, and especially when they don't know what's going on. They need to know what's going on. We need to have a better communication system so everybody knows what's going on. I'd love for everybody to come to the board meetings, but that's just not possible. So we need to make sure somehow that we get the board meetings out to them. People need to know what's going on in Blair, whether they can come every first Monday night or not, or every second Monday night or not. They need to know what's going on at the schools, especially if they have kids here, and especially if they pay taxes. I think that's all of us.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
I think a big thing for me is we have to be prepared to look at what's down the road with all of the things going on. Blair's changing. It's definitely a different town from when I started in 1976 student teaching here than it is today teaching in 2022. Different makeup of people, different circumstances, and society is completely different. One of the tough things for a school district is to look to see how are we going to meet those changes in the future? What are we going to do to make sure that we're keeping abreast of the changes? What happens if we get instant growth? Okay, our growth has been pretty steady. It's not been leaps and bounds, but with new industry coming in and the possibility of even more with Google building just right down our road, what could happen? A developer come in out by Lakeland and put in 100 or 200 houses, they would come to Blair. We need to be thinking, what are we going to do? And get people in the community involved with it. We've already started to do that with the Building and Grounds Committee, trying to get people involved with that to see what direction do we go with the schools. And try to make it so that it becomes, we're not caught behind, and we're ready to happen. So I guess looking ahead to the future as well as what we've done great in the past.
All right, thanks, Steve. Berta?
I don't have a major issue or an axe to grind for why I'm running. I don't believe people fully understand what a commitment a volunteer school board does for this community. And I do truly, from experience, believe that at least 90% of our staff are working their tails off. And as far as what has gone on over the last 2 years, who would have ever imagined that the country would go through COVID? So I really believe that we need to maybe give our staff and our board a little bit of a break on that. I went through it. I'm a business owner of 25 years, very successful, and a big part of it was thanks to this school district and the teachers that I looked up to that had a part in teaching me some of the values that I have. But that's really simply, I mean, I don't have anything to add to that. It's just, you gotta give people a break, Until you're in their shoes, don't be casting stones.
Right. Thank you. Nate, you get to lead this one off. And this question is, bullying among students in schools today is on the rise.
Tim.
Oh, sorry, Tim. Cut you off there. It's gonna be good.
I wasn't gonna interrupt, man. Much like some of the rest of them said, I think there's a big communication breakdown where there seems to be a lot of frustration with some of the teachers. There seems to be a big frustration with the parents. I've talked to a lot of parents that feel that when they address the issues to school, they're not being addressed. They're not getting their responses, or they're being ignored, or kind of where you were leading off, a lot of issues, they're bullying. A lot of times bullying has been swept under that rug. And so that somewhere in there, we have to figure out where that communication breakdown is, and we need to be able to fuse it together to be able to let everybody be heard and have a voice and try to fix that problem.
Okay. Now, Nate.
All right.
All right, the question is, bullying among students in schools today is on the rise. While some bullying is on school grounds, others via social media. What ideas would you offer to address this issue?
That's a great question. I think as far as ideas go with social media, I don't think that there's a lot that can be done at the school level if it's outside of school, and it shouldn't be. The most important thing, again, to me, is the experience of the students, and obviously that's going to affect it. But I think what we would need to do, again, like Tim said, have open communication, and try to find ways, to bridge that. So, whether that be, as a school board member, as someone on the staff, reaching out to the parents, to make sure that they know what's going on. Again, I think that's probably the most important thing. If it happens on the school, during school hours and so forth, that's an entirely different scenario. Again, I think communication is probably the primary thing.
Okay, thank you. Brittany?
Bullying is a big issue. There's so many layers to it. There's, mean girls and boys that haze, and, there's just so many different layers, and social media just adds more complexity to it. I think that mentorship is important. I think if we can build programs within the schools where older kids talk to younger kids and do some sort of annual, assembly to do an anti-bullying campaign, and similar to way back in the day when we had Blair, when we talked about, we had those programs. That's one opportunity to make bullying unacceptable and bring more awareness to it. I think we do a good job with having processes and policies in place to address it when it happens within the schools, but I know there's always room for improvement. I think cell phones and social media and things like that, taking pictures and doing things in school, there's a level to that is trying to be addressed through the legislature, but at this point, that's always another avenue too.
Amy?
Bullying's always been an issue, I think. One thing we've got to do is we've got to listen. We have to encourage our parents to listen. I know that I had a friend that called me about her son that was being bullied in the class. I mean, it was like the first week of school. And I got involved. It's like, it's none of my business, but it is my business because it was a child in my son's class. It was one of my son's friends. And I am in this community and I want to stop bullying if I can. So I got involved. And I messaged the teacher over instant messenger on Facebook. I emailed the teacher and I CC'd the principal just to let them know what happened so they could take care of it. With 25, 30, 35 kids in a class, I'm not sure what we have here at Blair. I've had as much as 35 kids in my class. Bullying is hard to see. So we really need to encourage the parents to keep their eyes open, keep their ears open. Let's keep that dialogue and I'm all about communication. Let's keep that dialogue going. Let's let everybody know what's going on. You as a parent, you know more about your children than what we do. If something's going on, let's make sure that the staff knows, because I tell you what, they took care of that problem real quick and in a hurry.
All right, Steve?
Yeah, bullying is, I've seen it, and it's hard to address because kids are very good about hiding it in places, and that when they come up and talk to you, you need to address it, and I think a lot of the teachers do that when they are aware of it. Cell phones make it all that much harder because the communication becomes such an instant gratification society, and we want instant answers to our questions. We want instant fixes to our problems, and there's so much kind of hiddenness in the types of media that we use today. People are particularly more emboldened to be mean, I think. So it is more difficult. I agree, communication is key on that, keeping informed. see it in schools and that, definitely try to get it taken care of. But yeah, it's a hard question to really say and to answer. It is an issue, and it is one that we try to address whenever we are aware of it. But so much of it is so hard to be aware of because it's done texting and other things that we don't see.
Okay, Herta.
No, it's not fair being the last one because they took all my.
Two more.
I'm still over here.
Two more
It seems like it.
Just say like they say.
No, in a perfect world, bowling wouldn't be around. But sorry to say, it's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. I do believe that these little black things that kids carry with them 24/7, I have a big problem, and always have had a problem with them being on them in the classroom during any time during the school day. If there's an emergency, the school district has a plan in place for that. Because I think that's where the majority of the bullying comes from. But as far as ways to correct it, what has worked in the past is counselors at each school will have small group. I don't want to use the word therapy, but they will have small groups of children that can talk about it freely and not be afraid of it. So that is one way to do it, handle it. Another thing is also to continue the zero tolerance on bullying. It hasn't been tolerated for a long time, and maybe we need to make the consequences a little bit harder on them.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
I think first and foremost, the communication, you get these parents that say, it's not my kid wouldn't do it. And I have seen that more times than I can count. And it would happen at school, it would happen when I coached softball. You would see something, you would address the parents, and they're like, no, my kid wouldn't do that, he said he didn't do it. Well, you have the people that saw it and it did happen, so it needs to be addressed. So all that's doing is enabling it. And when she talked about the whole safety program, like, kind of like how we had like with DARE, right before COVID had started, I started it when my book was released, and I had gotten some of the businesses around the community involved. And it was basically a safety zone to where if the kids felt like they were being bullied, the establishment, it didn't cost the establishment anything, but the kids could go in there, they knew that they were safe, and either the parents or the police could be called depending on the circumstance. COVID hit and it shut everything down. I am still in the process of trying to get that back going. I have the radio station that I'm working with that's getting it going, and so that is something that I'm trying to do for the community.
I think that sounds like a really cool program. But the trend is communication, and I agree with that, listening to our kids, hearing what they have to say. And I know for myself, whenever my kids seem to have even had just a hard day, if I email the teacher is on it and is, always willing to talk to our kids, because I do feel like from the school, make sure that the kids do feel seen and that they do hear them. So, yeah, I agree, communication.
Okay, thank you. Brittany, you'll start with this one. And this is kind of a big picture question regarding curriculum. What is your vision for education in the Blair school system in the next 5 years? Big picture.
The big picture is to really make a focus on updating our curriculums, all of them. As I said earlier, that curriculum updates took a backseat during our budget issues. We are updating social studies and language arts this year, and normally they're on a 7-year cycle. One of the big concerns is textbooks, focusing on the right textbooks, and many publishers don't always publish for our Midwest values and whatnot, so textbooks can be difficult to choose when you're trying to teach through the state standards. And making those textbooks available so that parents and students can come in and review those. After a committee has gathered to kind of do their due diligence and evaluations of the right topics to make sure that these textbooks are what's best for our kids. Bringing those and having families be able to come in and give their own opinions and see what they think. So that's one of the focuses that we've started to implement, and I hope that that continues to grow through all of the next levels of all of our curriculums, math and science, and social studies and language arts.
Okay. Amy?
Unfortunately, whenever I chose Blair to live here, we were 8s and 9s on the grade school report. We're 7 and 8s now, so we have declined a little bit. So I guess my big picture is to figure out how to bring those scores back up. If you go on to other, I've been on other venues that has said that our education has declined some. We're still a great school. We still get great education. We have the HOW program, which is wonderful for our gifted children. We have the middle children do really good. I think we have a great special ed program. We do need more though. We need some behavioral people to help with the children that need that extra support. I know we have something in the works about hiring a behavioral therapist and some parents for a new program. We need to be on that. We need to make that work. We need those children back from Boys County, back from other places. Our parents shouldn't feel like that their children aren't welcome here because they have special needs and they need special attention to be able to get a proper education.
All right, Steve.
All right, mine is definitely curriculum. When I started to work on the social studies again, because I was substituting every other week, one of the things that I wanted to bring to the attention was I picked those books out in 2008 that we were still using. And part of that comes out of the fact that we went through 2 budget reductions in that time. So do we get rid of staff, or do we keep the old curriculum that we had and we get by and make it good and refresh it with stuff off the internet and stuff? And that's one of the choices that we made. We're now back on to a curriculum cycle that is much more better. It's, I believe, 7 years or 6.5 years between cycles, which is pretty standard, and it's cost effective for keeping up. I also think that it's important that we look at all the different areas of our curriculum. I'm very proud that we have been able to increase the offering, and the number of students taking our vocational offerings has practically tripled in the last year. Our classes are full, and we're able to offer almost a full program, and within a few years a full program of being able to walk out of Blair High School with a complete degree in like welding and several other courses that they can go out to the workforce right away. I'd love to go on because there's more that I'd like to say.
Tough to say in 90 seconds.
I just pick up from where you are. Trades has always been a huge passion of mine. I've seen it decline horribly in the last 10 years in the construction field, and that goes anywhere from being a carpenter or electrician. I was thrilled, wish it would have happened when I was on the board, to see the expansion of the industrial arts classroom areas. But that being said, because there is several kids that just simply aren't going to make it to college, but along with getting the cycle for the textbooks, keeping a curriculum cycle for all our technology, we need to maybe possibly look at, different ways of how we're teaching our kids. Kids aren't learning the same way that I did. And also, there's a lot of kids that are just different. Even in Blair, there's kids that they learn by reading. Then there's a lot of kids that learn by doing. And I'll admit, I'm one of those that I need to see how it's done to understand it. So that is something that could be added to what the rest of these folks said. Getting on the curriculum cycle, in the past it has been, when we had to watch our budget, it was the books, the textbooks that paid the price, and it's a shame.
Okay, so Tim.
And I'm gonna continue off of what they're saying, is the trades always growing up, not so much now, but growing up were looked down upon. But look, like after going through COVID, look at all those trades that kept us going. Those things that people didn't think would, like look at welders and, plumbers and electricians, all of those kept us going. And I don't think that it's given the proper credit that it deserves. So I think to see more focused there, I think would be very influential for our children.
Courtney.
I agree with that also. The trades programs that have been implemented have made a huge impact on my oldest. He is currently in the welding, and I suspect that is going to be his career path because he has done so well and picked it up and loved it, and I'm really grateful for that. So I definitely agree with pushing the trades with furthering those programs, getting our community involved in those, possibly local businesses and things that can come in and things like that. But that is definitely one, hands down, the trades is a big deal and will make a big difference on our community when those kids graduate.
Okay. Nate, wrap this one up.
Yep. For me, I think one of the things that I'd like to see is a lot more classes that give college credits. One of the things I did find out was that when my oldest son went to college this year, most of the people that he became friends with up there didn't have to take a lot of their general ed courses because they had taken them in high school and gotten college credits for them. And there weren't that many offerings for that here. So I think that would be something that would definitely set us ahead, and help the kids, in preparation for the future. The second thing, it actually isn't curriculum, but it's who's teaching the curriculum. Again, in going back to what I think is most important, it's the teachers. And what I would like to see 5 years from now would be Blair to be thought of as a destination. When somebody becomes a teacher, that they want to stay here, and that we don't lose them in the future. When we get a good teacher, we should do everything that we can, to make sure that they stay in Blair. And so, it's not necessarily a curriculum answer there, but they're the ones that are teaching the curriculum. I think that's the most important thing.
Very good, thank you. Excuse me. We have like one more question, and then we're gonna let you all say your closing statement or whatever you wanna say, if you wanna say anything at the end. So, final question, we'll start with Amy. What are your thoughts on the evolving discipline problems teachers, parents, and administrators face with students?
Oh, positive reinforcement. That's a biggie. You have to find the good. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you gotta, I like the way you picked that paper clip, thank you. But, so sometimes it's hard to find the good, but a lot of these kids, I can't say that. Blair, I've had a great experience with these kids. A lot of kids in general. It's the negative attention that they're used to. It's the negative attention that they seek because that's the attention that they have always gotten. That just needs to be turned around to positive attention, and then we're going to want to do much more positive things. Will they slip up and do things that are wrong that need discipline? Of course they will. I mess up and do things wrong that needs discipline. But as long as we're giving that positive praise, giving them that positive reinforcement whenever they're doing things that they should be, treating them with love and respect, we'll get that back. I mean, they're just little humans that just need to be guided and need that reinforcement to do what they're supposed to do.
Thank you. Steve?
As I said, students today are a whole world different than when I started out, and it is difficult, oftentimes, the discipline and things like that. Communication is important, trying to help those kids. Many of them come from situations that you are unaware of, and part of that is to try to find out where those kids are coming from. A lot of times they're bringing suitcases full of problems from home and from outside, and it's hard for them to concentrate and to really focus in on the task at hand, education. And so the need for counselors and for people to help them is immense, much more so than it was 40 years ago when I started teaching. Discipline, again, I think we keep our standards high. Blair's known for that. We expect kids to have a certain behavior, and we hold it to them to do that. We really notice that when we get students transferring from other schools, particularly Omaha and other areas where they're used to not having as much discipline. So I think we keep that standard, and we try to give them help and try to realize that every kid is different, and sometimes they need to be treated differently to get them on the right track.
All right. Berta?
I'm very old-fashioned, old school. Rules are rules. From the time children are small, it should start at home, disciplinary actions. Children from the age of 0 to 6, all they really know is what they're going to do, and there's consequences for it, or there's high praise for it. I've read 10 papers on it in the last 2 weeks. We just need to love them, but part of that love is also disciplining when they're doing wrong, but praise them when they're doing right. I understand that we have a pretty good percentage of children that don't probably get that at home, and we do our best as a district. That's been going on in our district for years. But along with the discipline that our district does, is maybe we can reach out a little bit further to those folks at home that maybe need a little extra help.
All right, thank you. Jim?
I kind of have to agree with her. Where does it start? Most of the time it starts at home. That's where it generates from. But again, it goes back to, are the parents going to listen? Because then you go to, they have to admit that there's some sort of issue at hand, and a lot of people don't want to do that. The discipline in school has always been handled very well, in my opinion. Like I said, I went to Blair. It's the only place I've ever been. And anytime there was a situation at hand, it was always dealt with properly, and everybody always seemed to do it in a very well respected manner. There was no teachers that were ever out of line or out of control. There were those teachers that, you feared with that iron fist, but the kids listened. They knew when they messed up, and it's just, again, staying positive with them, and that positive reinforcement.
Okay. Courtney?
Yeah, I agree also that it does start at home, that the teachers need to have the parents backing them up on the discipline that they dole out, whatever. But, and it seems like almost every question comes back to communication, that, communication between the teacher and the parent. I know when a kid comes home and tells you things, you can't just immediately assume that what they're saying is exactly what happened. I know it assumes, I always try to start my emails with, this is what they say. I know that this is their version, because kids have their own way of twisting things, they're wandering to a home too. And so, it goes back to the communication between the teacher and the parent backing up the teacher and saying, to your kids, yeah, you did it. What your teacher has said is correct. So I think support between parents and teacher is a big deal.
Okay. Nate?
Yeah, I think going along with what everyone said, I think having high standards and then holding the kids to those standards is very important. Communication is very important with the parents, but also I think it's important to develop leaders in the classroom, the students. And I think Blair has done a really good job with that, and I think that's why we don't have a lot of the issues that other surrounding schools have. We have student leaders, who stop those kind of things from happening before they get bigger. And if we can continue to create leadership opportunities for our kids to develop those skills, I think that's what we want to do.
Okay. Brittany?
I just want to start off by saying I think Blair is known for having very well-behaved kids. I think anytime we went to a sporting event, our student section are always been giving feedback to the administrators of how well they behave and that there's a great place to be. But that doesn't mean that there's not your one-offs and your kids that need that special attention, and maybe they're seeking that special attention and supporting the administrators and the teachers and the staff with school psychologists and counselors and behavioral specialists that can be resources and giving our teachers professional development opportunities to learn how to handle an ever-changing, the kids that are coming up, after a pandemic definitely have a different social background than the kids that grew up, got social before that kind of thing. So, but I do think communication between teachers and parents, I know I've always had a lot of good and bad feedback through conferences and just communication back and forth about what your kids are doing every day. And you definitely as a parent have to address that and let them know what the expectations are and work with the teacher to follow up and make sure that the expectations are being met.
Okay, thank you. So now here's your chance to say whatever you want to say for 60 to 90 seconds. Hurt, I'll give you a choice. You want to go first or last?
I'll go.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. I guess really it's pretty short and sweet. As a board member, I'm an extremely active board member. Some of my favorite times in the past were, most fun times, it was not being at a budget meeting, but it was visiting schools. I visited the schools on a regular basis. I visited with staff on a regular basis. I visited with kids. Would eat lunch, sit down and eat lunch with complete strange kids I had no connection to. I had no idea who they were. That's where you learn about a school district. That's where you learn the wants and the needs. By going through all the facilities, talking to all the staff. I do a lot of research and I had in the past. I didn't ever come to meetings unprepared. But again, in conclusion, I'm all about all of the kids. I always have been and always will be.
Go down to Tim. Right down the line.
Being born and raised in this town, my heart sits here. Like I said before, everything that this school system did for me at the worst point in my life, I feel that this is an opportunity for me to give back to the school. It speaks volumes. There's teachers that I have that I will forever remember. My first grade teacher is sitting in this audience right now. And she was one of my favorite teachers. My daughter's kindergarten or first grade, her teacher is sitting here right now, and she is the reason that my daughter is going into teaching. And there's, it's such a tight-knit community, and they pull together when they need to. And I feel that, with as much as I do with the community, this is one more thing that I can do to be able to give back. And so if you choose to vote for me, thank you.
Courtney?
Yeah, my thought is, for such a time as this, now is the time. Now is the time for myself to step up as a mom, to be involved, to kind of put my stake in the game. I think parents kind of took a back seat for a while and kind of coasted. And so I think it's time for parents, myself, to step up, to be involved in decisions, to filter, issues, to, now's the time to get this trajectory. This is our children's future. So, such a time as this, now's the time.
Okay. Nate?
I'm a Blair Bear. I bleed Blair purple, and I don't have an agenda, coming onto the board. I wouldn't have one. I can promise you I would look at all sides of issues, when they came to me. And I would try to search out the opinion. I wouldn't shy away from what other people had to say about things. I would search out the opinions of the students, the staff, and the parents. And then I'm going to repeat myself that I would make every decision based on, number one, what's in the best interest of the kids, and number two, how we can support the teachers to give them that experience, the best experience that we can. And I would always be willing to discuss with anyone the reasoning why I voted the way I did on certain issues. And I can promise you it will always come back to those two things, no matter what it is. I love Blair schools, you know, and I want to see the kids get the best experience that they can. And I hope that I'm elected to the school board and be able to help that to happen.
All right.
Go Blair Bears!
All right. Brittany?
As a parent, I support Blair schools. I've seen my students interact with coaches and teachers through athletics and fine arts. My kids are choir and show choir, and I think Blair is such a diverse from academics through fine arts and athletics that there are so many opportunities for them. And as a current Blair school board member, I feel like we have a momentum going, and I'm very excited to continue to be a part of that and see all of the new opportunities that we can continue to do to improve Blair School District. And I just want to be an advocate for athletes, and we're just gonna say.
Okay, Amy?
As we watch the news or read the paper and we see what's going on around us in other school districts, I love Blair. I love that we do not have the problems that we see in the other school districts and the other areas, and I'd like to keep it like that. I'm a very proactive person. I like to watch for issues that are elsewhere and make sure that they don't come here. I want to make sure that I'm always informed. I want to be an advocate for our children and your parental rights. I don't want to step on your parental rights because you're the parents, you're not co-parents. If you vote for me, you'll have an advocate. May 10th, Amy Coffin.
Steve, you can wrap us up?
All right, I'd love to be reelected. I'm loving what I do as I have for the last 40-some years here in Blair. I love little kids, and I'd love to continue to try to do some things with the curriculum. We've already done some great things in the last couple of years, and I'd like to see some more. I'd love to see us get into that new auto facility that we can do jointly with Metro, and some of the other things that we're trying to work on to help give more things for the kids in the future. I'd like to continue to make sure that we update and bring our facilities up to the 21st century, especially the high school and our elementary buildings. I also would love to kind of make sure that we continue with that feeling that Blair is a family, that we pull together, that we respect one another, and that we do that all together underneath the idea of being the Blair Bears. Like I tell my kids when I would take them coaching, you are the community. You're the walking billboard. Don't think of what you are and who you are of the whole community by your actions. And I've always been very proud of Blair students. I've always felt that they were the very best. So I'd love to continue on with the job that I'm doing. I love to give the time, and it is very time consuming, but I think I can provide great leadership and change because of my experience in the buildings and on the grounds, and the whole community.
All right. Well, thank you all of the candidates for being here tonight. I think they're very informative, and I'm sure you will stay around and answer questions one-on-one if anybody has some specifically for you. And let's give the candidates a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. If you guys need some signatures, come on up. I don't have this for